this is Natalie Kimura, your Western District Vice President of Membership. And today I just wanted to cover a little PowerPoint called After Submitting Your Packet. This is a sort of WDC timeline where candidates experience this during WDC, and this is never really explained in a document. So I decided to make this basic timeline of what happens while you're at WDC, because you're running around doing other things that are not in a committee or just not explained correctly, or at least not explained at all until you actually show up and do it. And this is sort of like a preview of what typically happens through the process. Okay, for the first slide, to begin, you get to dress a little different from typical Western District conventions. Typically, you actually have to dress professional for your interview for three things. For your interview with a district caucus, that means it's either in a room with a certain amount of people for KSI, or being in an entire room for like TBS. And you also get to dress professional with an interview with a NOMS committee, and then when you actually have official elections. And if you notice on the side, I thought Michelle Obama was pretty bomb girl who dresses up pretty nicely. And I thought this dude was pretty business casual. Business casual is usually pretty standard for what to look like. And then for the next slide, this is just talking about what happens at a district caucus. Typically, this happens during a session on Friday night where the candidates get to have a chance to do a presentation with the district or do it in a certain amount of rooms. For KSI, it's usually several rooms with several chapters. It depends on the leadership at the time on what they want to organize. And for TBS, since it's so small of 8 chapters, usually it's just one room with the entire district. And usually candidates have a 2-minute or more or less presentation to speak about their platform and packet and why they want to run for office. And then after the 2 minutes, they have 5 minutes or more or less a Q&A about their packets and presentation with the entire district or with several rooms. For KSI, you usually do a series of 3 to 4 rooms, depending on what is decided. But usually it's like 3 or 4 rooms. And for TBS, it's just one go in one place at one time. And then this is what happens when you have a nominations committee. And the nominations committee is usually the most committed committee out of the 3 that the district has. Usually the NOMS committee head and advisor contacts the candidates for a closed individual interview. Usually it's on 15 minutes of time. You usually get like 5 to 10 minutes where you get to discuss another presentation about yourself, and then you have like another 15-minute discussion, more or less, with the committee where they get to ask questions directly to you. And usually this is just like a short presentation of what you said the night before, and your interview usually happens during the Saturday morning or afternoon, depending on how many people are running or where it's happening. And they just get to ask questions and just have a chat. And then this is just an explanation of what the NOMS committee does. So this is a nice little introduction if you have a new member who's doing this. And this is like a chance or introduction on what the NOMS committee exactly does. And typically what a committee member does, if you decide to do it, is read the candidates' packets. These packets are turned in on time for you to be able to read it. And the candidates know that they try to make them as best as they can be. And candidates should know that all committee members are committed to read them and read the general question and answers and officer-specific question and answers that you've had to fill out before completing them. And then once you finish reading them, you have a chance to make a list of questions to ask the candidates. And this could be about their packet or clarities on answers if it wasn't specific enough or if it didn't make sense to you. And this is also making questions on the platform on why you want to do it and how you're going to do it. And then including questions in part if you don't understand something that's going on. Usually the committee head and the advisor contact you with plenty of time to be able to help you understand what's going on and decide if are able to be qualified candidates for the positions that they're running for, or if they needed to be something else, or if it's completely wrong. So it's basically trying to depend on if these candidates that are running are qualified. The next slide is talking about looking at a packet and the candidates' presentations. And for the packets, you need to be looking for professionalism, clear organization, looking at thorough ideas that have been planned out, and a concise language and precise grammar and correct spelling. And this is something that you should be looking for as you're reading them and as you're making questions. And for the presentations, when the candidates have to represent themselves and do a presentation for the committee members and for the district in general, they should see an emphasis for preparedness and looking professional. If they have note cards or they have speeches prepared, and have a confidence or positivity or relatability that makes them look like the best candidate. If there's many people running for one position or if there's nobody at all, it is your chance to understand like who would be the best person for which position. And now, this is where potential candidates running for office and the committee can understand. And basically what a noms committee looks for is to make a slate. And this is the ideal list of candidates for the district based on their presentations and packets. And typically, on the Saturday night, the committee advisor finally gets a chance to announce the slate to chapters for them to understand and caucus what to do with the slate. If they decide to make it better or to make it worse or just to have somebody run off the floor, which I do not recommend, or decide that none of the candidates are to the district's best interest and decide to vote a certain way and to understand why it happened or how this came to conclusion and to understand if this is the way it should be and if this is best for the district. And with this in mind, after the slate being announced, it's on the next day in the morning. Both sides, Kappa Kappa Psi and Tau Beta Sigma, have the official election. Even with the slate being announced, it must have the majority vote for it to be voted in. And if it does not get the majority vote, then each office position has to be discussed / voted on individually. And this can be in a very long process or it can be a very short one. It depends on the day and the election and what's happening. And so if the slate does not pass with a majority vote, that means the election occurs. For KSI, it would be from the president, VP, secretary treasurer to member at large. For TBS, it would be president, VPM, VPSP, and then secretary-treasurer. And then the official elections happens as a delegate vote. And sometimes candidates have to speak again if more than one candidate runs for the position. And if they were already on the slate, they do not have to be nominated again in order to be voted or to be voted on that election slot. And if you want to understand the next voting options, during this official election, there will be another video talking about this, and hopefully it will be paired together. And this is just a basic WDC outline of how it works for a candidate and what happens with the noms committee and how it goes from one thing to the next. And if you have any questions or comments or concerns, just make an email to wdvpm@tbsigma.org. if you have any questions or if something wasn't clear enough. And then I hope you guys have a nice day.